A desperate mother's drama was unfolding in front of her child's eyes when she called Steve Harvey for help. What he did next saved both mother and child from a nightmare and proved that sometimes the most heroic acts happen when someone with influence chooses to answer emergency calls from people who have nowhere else to turn. It was a rainy Tuesday evening in November 2023, and Steve Harvey was at home in Atlanta, winding down after a long day of filming, when his personal phone rang with a number he didn't recognize. Steve's policy was usually not to answer unknown calls, especially in the evening, but something compelled him to pick up this particular call. "Hello," Steve answered, expecting perhaps a wrong number or telemarketer. Instead, he heard the voice of a woman who was clearly in extreme distress, crying so hard she could barely speak coherently. "Mr. Harvey, this is Angela Morrison. I got your number from your foundation. I'm sorry to call you personally, but I don't know what else to do. My world is falling apart, and my 6-year-old son is watching it happen." Steve immediately sat up, recognizing the desperation in Angela's voice. In the background, he could hear a child crying and asking, "Mommy, what's wrong? Why are you sad? Angela, slow down and tell me what's happening. Where are you right now?" "I'm in my car outside my apartment in Birmingham, Alabama. Mr. Harvey, I was just evicted from our home. I lost my job 3 weeks ago and I couldn't make rent. They put all our belongings on the curb, and now Tommy and I have nowhere to go." Steve could hear the rain hitting Angela's car windows and the sound of her 6-year-old son Tommy crying in the background. "Mommy, I'm scared." Tommy's small voice was audible through the phone. "Why can't we go inside our house?" "Angela, are you and Tommy safe right now?" "We're safe, but we're sitting in my car with everything we own in garbage bags in the back seat. Mr. Harvey, I have $12 to my name, a quarter tank of gas, and my little boy is asking me questions I don't know how to answer." Steve's heart broke as he listened to Angela's situation unfold. "Angela, what happened to your job?" "I worked at a daycare center for 4 years. The owner sold the business, and the new owners fired most of the staff. I've been looking for work every day, but nobody's hiring, or they want experience I don't have. Meanwhile, the bills kept coming, and I kept falling further behind." Through the phone, Steve could hear Tommy's increasingly frightened questions. "Mommy, where are we going to sleep? Are we going to be okay? Why are you crying so much? Angela, what's Tommy understanding about what's happening?" "Too much, Mr. Harvey. He's seen me crying every day for weeks. He's watched me count and recount the little money we had. He was there when the landlord came to the door and when the sheriff's deputies put our furniture outside. He's 6 years old, and he's watching his mother fall apart." Steve realized he was witnessing a family crisis that was traumatizing a child in real time. "Angela, have you called any social services or homeless shelters?" "The shelters are full, and there's a waiting list. Social services said they could place Tommy in foster care while I get back on my feet. But Mr. Harvey, I can't let them take my son. He's all I have, and I'm all he has." The desperation in Angela's voice was heartbreaking. But what concerned Steve most was the psychological impact this crisis was having on young Tommy. "Angela, I want you to listen to me very carefully. You and Tommy are not going to spend tonight in your car. I'm going to help you right now. Mr. Harvey, I wasn't calling to ask for money. I needed someone to talk to who might understand what it's like to struggle. My family disowned me when I had Tommy as a single mother, and I don't have anyone else to call. Angela, you called the right person at the right time. Give me your exact location." While Angela provided her address, Steve was already making calls. He contacted his assistant and his foundation coordinator, setting emergency assistance in motion. "Angela, I want you to drive to the Hampton Inn on Highway 280 in Birmingham. When you get there, ask for the front desk manager and tell them you're Angela Morrison. There will be a room reserved for you and Tommy for the next 2 weeks. Mr. Harvey, I can't afford a hotel room. You're not paying for it. I am. And Angela, that's just the beginning. Steve spent the next hour on the phone, while Angela drove to the hotel, coordinating immediate assistance and longer-term support for the family. When Angela and Tommy arrived at the Hampton Inn, they found that Steve had not only paid for their room, but had arranged for food to be delivered and had contacted local social services to begin emergency assistance. But Steve's intervention went far beyond immediate shelter. The next morning, Steve called Angela with news that would change their lives. Angela, I've been thinking about your situation all night. You and Tommy need stability, not just temporary help. Mr. Harvey, the hotel room is more than enough. I can't thank you. Angela, I want to offer you a job. My foundation needs someone to coordinate assistance for single mothers in crisis. The position pays $45,000 a year with full benefits, including health insurance. Angela was silent for a long moment. Mr. Harvey, are you serious? Completely serious. Angela, you understand the challenges facing single mothers because you're living them. That makes you the perfect person to help other families in similar situations. But I don't have experience in social work or nonprofit management. Angela, you have the most important qualification. You know what it's like to need help. We'll provide training for everything else. 3 days later, Angela and Tommy moved into a furnished apartment that Steve's foundation had secured for them. The apartment was in a safe neighborhood with good schools, and the first year's rent was covered by the foundation. Tommy's first night in the new apartment, he asked his mother a question that showed how much the crisis had affected him. "Mommy, are we going to have to leave this house too?" "No, baby," Angela replied, holding her son close. "This is our home now. We're safe, and we're going to be okay." But Steve recognized that Tommy had witnessed traumatic events that could have lasting psychological effects. He arranged for Tommy to see a child psychologist who specialized in helping children process family crises. Dr. Sarah Chen, the child psychologist, worked with Tommy for several months to help him understand what had happened and develop coping strategies for anxiety and fear. Tommy experienced what we call secondary trauma, Dr. Chen explained to Angela. He wasn't just dealing with the stress of homelessness. He was watching his mother's emotional distress and feeling responsible for her pain. Children often blame themselves when families face crises. Through therapy, Tommy learned that his family's problems weren't his fault and that asking for help was a sign of strength, not weakness. 6 months after the emergency phone call, Angela appeared on Steve's television show to share her story and express her gratitude. "Mr. Harvey," Angela said during the interview, "that night when I called you, I was at the lowest point of my life. I felt like a failure as a mother because I couldn't provide for my son." "What were you thinking when you made that call?" Steve asked. "I was thinking that Tommy was going to remember watching his mother fall apart, and that would be his lasting memory of childhood. I was terrified that I was damaging him emotionally." Tommy, now 7 years old and thriving in his new school, joined his mother on stage. "Tommy, do you remember that night when you and your mom were scared?" Steve asked gently. "I remember being in the car and Mommy being sad," Tommy said. "But then we got to stay in the hotel, and now we have our own house, and Mommy has a job, helping other mommies. How do you feel about your mom now?" "I'm proud of her," Tommy said with a big smile. "She helps families like us, and she's not sad anymore." Angela's work with Steve's foundation had been transformative, not just for her family, but for her sense of purpose. In her first year, she had helped coordinate assistance for over 200 families facing homelessness and crisis. "Angela, what do you want people to know about families in crisis?" Steve asked during the show. "I want them to know that homelessness and poverty can happen to anyone. I had a job, I was paying my bills, and then everything fell apart in a matter of weeks. But I also want them to know that children are watching and absorbing everything during these crises. What advice would you give to other mothers facing similar situations? Ask for help before it's too late. Don't let pride keep you from seeking assistance. And remember that your children need you to be strong, which sometimes means admitting you need support. Steve's intervention in Angela and Tommy's crisis became a model for his foundation's emergency assistance program. The foundation established a 24-hour crisis hotline for families facing immediate homelessness or safety issues. The program, called Safe Harbor Emergency Response, provides immediate temporary housing, emergency funds, job placement assistance, and trauma counseling for children who have witnessed family crises. 2 years after that desperate phone call, Angela Morrison is now the director of the Safe Harbor program, overseeing assistance for families across the southeastern United States. Tommy, now 8 years old, is an honor student who volunteers with his mother at foundation events, helping other children who are experiencing family crises. Tommy has become a peer counselor for kids whose families are going through tough times, Angela explains. He tells them that things can get better because he's lived through it. Steve keeps a recording of that original phone call from Angela, not as a reminder of her desperation, but as a reminder of why emergency assistance programs are critical for protecting children from trauma. Angela's call taught me something important, Steve often reflects. When families are in crisis, children are the silent victims who absorb all the stress, fear, and uncertainty. Helping the family quickly isn't just about preventing homelessness, it's about preventing childhood trauma that can last a lifetime. The Safe Harbor Emergency Response Program has since assisted over 2,000 families and has been replicated by other charitable organizations across the country. Today, Angela Morrison speaks at conferences about family crisis intervention and childhood trauma prevention, sharing her story to help other organizations understand the urgency of immediate assistance for families with children. The story of that rainy Tuesday phone call proves that sometimes the most important thing someone with resources can do is simply answer their phone when desperate people call. Because behind every family crisis is a child who needs to see that help is possible and that adults can solve problems when they work together. If this powerful story of emergency intervention, family crisis response, and the protection of children from trauma moved you, please subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who needs to know that help is available during family emergencies, and that asking for assistance is a sign of strength. Have you ever experienced a family crisis or witnessed how emergencies affect children? Let us know in the comments how communities can better support families in crisis. And don't forget to ring that notification bell for more amazing stories about emergency kindness and the beautiful things that happen when people with resources choose to respond immediately to those who need help most.